All right, joining us now from the floor of the Democratic National Convention, where Kamala Harris has wrapped up her big speech, is Sky News Washington correspondent Annelise Nielsen. Okay, Annelise, thanks for coming on tonight. Been a big day. All day long, though, there were all these rumors we kept hearing. Beyonce, Taylor Swift. There was even a rumor going around that George W. Bush was going to show up as a special surprise guest. But the best they could do was Adam Kinzinger. And we got Adam Kinzinger. Where was the star power tonight, Annelise Nielsen?
Well, look, I think they wanted Kamala Harris to be the star power. I thought Beyonce would make an appearance just because they've made such a feature of her song Freedom on the campaign trail. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. They thought Taylor Swift would wade into this at the moment. And I know we have a bit of time, but if you let me start talking about Taylor Swift, we'll be here all night. But she's quite obviously going to endorse Kamala Harris at some point. That's where her politics lie. And I just couldn't see her weighing into it now because they've had security concerns about her concerts recently anyway. The last thing she's going to want to do is put a target on her back. And I don't know how Pink got in the mix. I've just seen Ben Stiller. I never really understand why and when celebrities wade into these things, but I don't think it was the worst thing in the world. They didn't get a bunch of big celebrity names. This is politics. Leave it. You know what they say, politics is celebrity for ugly people. Leave it to us.
well, yeah, indeed. Well, so look, let's get on to the actual big speech itself. Now, there were a couple of interesting things that Kamala Harris had to say about the economy and the middle class. Have a listen to this.
The middle class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means. Yet, we wanted for little, and she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us. We will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed. I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs.
Okay, now, Annelise, here's where I'm confused here, because suddenly Kamala Harris is talking all about small business, individual achievement, and an opportunity economy. Yet you don't have to go back very far, and she's talking about things like equity and equal outcomes and things like that. Have we seen another Harris flip-flop where she's now suddenly painting herself, as a red and tooth and claw capitalist and pro-opportunity, pro-markets, pro-business kind of person?
Well, look, I wondered the same thing. I mean, how much can change in 4 years? The fact that now we've had a convention speech so focused on her being a prosecutor. When I first got here during the George Floyd riots, when we were talking about having to have bail reform, about how there was complete overreach of police and law enforcement, and all of a sudden we've got this candidate for this side of politics saying that her big win is that she's been putting bad guys away for so long. And she's never worked in private sector. She's never had to make payroll. She's never worked in a business where she's had to balance the budget. This has been her bread and butter. And they've just done such a complete 180 on the absolute focus on this. And the crowd was going wild for it. And I don't know how well that translates out to ordinary Americans, especially the ones who normally vote Democrat.
To that point of the, what people see, they see this very big, heavy hand of state. They see more environmental regulations and more taxes and the inflation that is so crippling to the middle class that's come across under this administration. But another thing that really struck me, too, just to jump off on your point, Annelise Nielsen, about her history as a prosecutor and talking tough on crime. She also talked really tough about the January 6th riot at the Capitol, and yet this is somebody who urged people to donate to a bail fund that was bailing out people who were involved with the Black Lives Matter riots. So it seems, again, pretty two-faced.
Look, this is just very much going to be her problem. These things will come back in this election campaign, and she can't avoid media forever. Even if she goes for the friendliest media interviews, she's going to have to sit down for an interview at some point. She's going to have to take a press conference. And some of those same stories that came up when she was running in 2020 will come back. The fact that she wanted to put parents in jail for kids who were missing school, that's a horribly punitive policy for low-income families families who might have a single mother household struggling to make ends meet. Mum's working 3 jobs and kids are running away and not going to school because they're too busy working. And her solution at the time was, let's put them in jail to teach them a lesson. That stuff goes down like a lead balloon with the very kind of demographic they're supposed to be talking to. But what I think this does illustrate is the fact that they think their core demographics changed. And I think, in a sense, they're right. Roe v. Wade being overturned has really changed who they're talking to. And Republicans are stuck with this really toxic policy. And this is the problem. We've got libertarians listening to someone like Kamala Harris and thinking that she has more in common with them than the Republican candidate. How do you make that argument? And so this is going to come down to personality, I think, more than anything. And that's why this debate's going to be so critical.
Well, you know, and something you just said there, Annelise, really struck me. You said the crowd went wild for the stuff that she was saying about the opportunity economy. But it strikes me, certainly with that crowd, and I think if you look at the way the Democrats have just simply accepted whatever they were told, fall into line, you know, said, oh, Joe Biden's sharp as a tack. Oh, no, he can't be the nominee anymore. Oh, no, Kamala Harris is wonderful. You look at all of this together, and she could have just as easily gotten up, I suspect, and given a whole speech about equity and equal outcomes and much more sort of socialist themes that you've seen in her past, and they would have also gone wild.
Absolutely. I think everyone here felt like they were staring down the abyss, knowing that they were going to face another 4 years of Donald Trump because Joe Biden wasn't with it and they were stuck with him as a candidate, and they've been given a second chance and they're not going to take that for granted. And I think, too, we need to just kind of take into consideration how orchestrated this whole thing was. This whole process of open convention started after the 1968 convention in Chicago because of the rioting around conscription and how toxic it was, that it was all backroom deals deciding who was in charge in our country, in America. And so when we're being told that this time around they do a virtual roll call, there were no primaries because the incumbent was fine until he wasn't fine, and then they decide that Kamala Harris has to step up and there's no other option because all the fundraising is linked up. That's why it is important to call out just how orchestrated this whole thing was. And that's why we've also been focusing today on the fact that the small amount of dissent here was the people who were pro-Palestine and wanted an opportunity for some of the uncommitted delegates to speak weren't given that opportunity, and that's significant. These are supposed to be the conventions where they decide party policy, and this time they were as light as detail on possible because they don't want to hook her to any policy that they'll have to defend later. They just want a celebration, they want clips for social media, and they want content for the 200 content creators that have been sponsored to come here and post to TikTok.
Well, tell me about these content creators. You know, we were chatting about that before offline. Who are these people? And to the point of orchestration, is this a big effort to make this look like a totally viral, totally natural thing, but really it's kind of like the postmodern social media age wag the dog thing, where they're actually behind the scenes pulling the strings about what we're all seeing in our algorithms?
Well, I mean, social media has just completely changed the game. We're all on social media a lot more than we were for the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump election of 2016. And people do get their information from social media. And so what they want to do is kind of curate that zeitgeist, and what they want to do is make sure that all these Gen Zs vote. And the big change is now there's so much more early voting and mail-in voting. You're more likely to get Gen Zs actually voting, and so that's why they're spending all this time catering to them. So on the floor of the convention here, there was a special pit with some of the best views in the house for content creators so that they could go in and do their selfie videos and make content that's almost exclusively pro-Democrat. And they had the suites up here where we were. They get all the catering for free. They get the best seats in the house. They get special entrances and exits. And they want all the special treat. And they get access to all the best talent from the Democrats. They're not talking to traditional media. They're coming up here to do little dances on TikTok. So I don't know how this is going to track. We don't have any modern comparison. But it's happening, is all I can tell you.
I tell you what, it's pretty worrying, Annelise Nielsen, that, you know, we're moving from an adversarial press to paid advocates and influencers. Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for staying up with us.